Welcome to Hannity. It's been a very big week for President Donald Trump. I'm Eric Bowling in for Sean tonight. The president helped House Republicans pass a bill to repeal and replace Obamacare. He took steps to protect religious freedom in America. He signed the new spending bill to keep the government's lights on, and the unemployment rate has just dropped to the lowest level in 10 years. When it comes to the commander-in-chief's biggest win of the week, though, health care. Democrats are stooping to new lows to try and scare Americans. Take a look.
Well, people are going to lose their lives. People are going to lose their health coverage. And these people think it's a party. They think this is something fun.
You were talking about it as some kind of a health care bill. This is not a health care bill. This is a massive tax break to the top 2%.
You know, deeply saddened by its passage because it means, of course, millions of people are going to lose their health insurance.
Senator Sanders, earlier this afternoon, you tweeted, quote, Donald Trump and Republicans just celebrated voting to let thousands of Americans die so that billionaires get tax breaks. Is that really what you think is happening here? Do you think thousands of Americans will die if...
Absolutely. No question.
This will cost American lives if it ever becomes law. This will mean death, pain, and suffering to people's families.
This crushing age tax will fall on some of the most vulnerable members of our society.
Let's put this bill in a coffin, not Americans. Let's kill and bury this bill. Thank you.
Really a stupid bill. It is a bill of deconstruction of government.
Well, this bill has a long way to go before it reaches the president's desk, but it looks like the Democrats are just getting started. Joining us now with reaction is counselor to the president, Kellyanne Conway. Kellyanne, have you ever seen, in literally just hours after the signing of the bill, we had 5 or 6 lawmakers saying people are going to die if you sign this bill.
It's so disappointing, and we have faith in the American people to know that that's not true. The Democrats lost everything not nailed to the ground in the last 3 of the last 4 elections, Eric, mainly because of Obamacare. It's been a terrible political loser for them. 938 state legislative seats, governorships, the control of the House, the Senate, and now the White House, in part because of this issue. We know what all the horrors of Obamacare have wrought. 20 million people last year opted out of it. 6.5 million Americans said they'd rather pay the penalty, they'd rather pay money than be part of Obamacare. It's had premiums out of control. People had a health insurance card, which is the worst possible outcome because they couldn't use it. It was the deductibles were unaffordable. What this does is the president has made clear, and he leaned all the way into this. He worked the phones. He had the meetings. He was right there with the House of Representatives getting this done, and the vice president. He is telling people your premiums will go down, your deductibles will go down. There's extra money in there for Americans with pre-existing conditions. That's a feature of Obamacare that's popular, and that is retained here with extra money.
I think a lot of people were concerned about that pre-existing condition issue, and that seemed to be solved with the additional $8 billion that was put into the bill. But talk to us about reducing the cost and price for not only health insurance, but health care. How does the bill do that?
The bill does that several ways. There's more competition in the system. You've got more flexibility to the governors with Medicaid because they have, they are closer to the people in need, and they know what their population needs. Having top-down care from the federal government was never a good idea. It's what Americans say is so intrusive, invasive, expensive, and expansive. Obamacare is the best example of a federal government that behaves that way. Also, there's money here to help people meet their deductibles if they need it. There is $100 billion for people with pre-existing conditions. There's an extra $8 billion for people who have a pre-existing condition and happen to live in a state that opts out, so that if they want to be granted the waiver, you're still protected. That was a feature that was important to some of those fence-sitting Republicans who came to the White House the day before the vote was taken. And so it's just a much better free market, patient-centric system. It also allows you almost to double your contribution to health savings accounts, which is a free market solution that allows you to have more control over your health care spending, allow people to pool together who don't have employer-sponsored coverage like most of us do, or government health care through, say, Medicare, Medicaid, or veterans benefits. It allows them to get access to care.
Kellyanne, I was one of the people out there who was pushing back on the original Paul Ryan bill because it didn't really introduce any competition. It didn't seem to introduce any substantial competition to the insurance companies so they can compete for our our dollars. Does this add that? And how does this add it?
Yeah, it's a big competition. We don't have competition now. Just this week, 94 of the 99 counties in the state of Iowa, Eric, they have one provider now. Aetna said it's coming out of all these exchanges. Medica in Iowa said the same thing. Just this week, we had Exhibit A of why this isn't working.
But these are examples of, that you can't sell insurance over state lines. When does that provision get into this legislation?
Well, that's something that's been very important to this president. He has talked about that all through the campaign, all through the transition, and now as president. It's important to him. The Senate, as you know, will be writing a bill, or they will take up the House bill. That's up to Leader McConnell and the Senate. And Leader McConnell and the president are in regular communication about health care and everything else. And the other thing is, let's not pretend and let's not forget, because the Democrats want people to forget and just to scare them, how we got to this place. 41 states saw deductibles increase. There's been an average of a 40% increase in people's premiums, 100% increase in some places. You have states now and counties, about a third of the counties in this country, all but 5 of the 99 counties in Iowa, that only have one provider. That's not choice, and that's not competition. And by the way, where the hell were those Democrats, when veterans were dying waiting for care? I didn't see them coming on TV with hosts that just sat there listening to them, and they're screed. When there were veterans dying for care who deserve better, this president 2 weeks ago signed the Veterans Choice Act. He expanded it so that if you're a veteran who cannot get timely, quality care at a VA, you can access the private system.
I don't have a lot of time. I want to get to this. You and I both live in the state of New Jersey. New Jersey started when Obamacare came out with several providers. They're down to 2 now, and by the end of this year, they'll have 1. The state of New Jersey will have 1 provider, and that is the problem with Obamacare.
That's the problem with Obamacare. But our United States senator was on a different network saying there's going to be pain and suffering and death.
That's Cory Booker. Let's call him out.
That's just terrible to say. People say he wants to run for president in 2020. You can't run for president scaring people and going on TV where no host asks you to produce any kind of evidence whatsoever that such death and destruction are going to befall people. I think they're running scared because they don't have a message. There's no economic message for the Democrats. They have no connective tissue with working class Americans. This last election with President Trump proved that.
I don't want to be one of those talking heads on the other side who didn't ask you about this. I really, really think it's very, very important to get that second phase 2 portion of competition across state lines.
Very important to President Trump.
If you're going to reduce the premiums, for me, that seems like it's the only way to do it, other than having government put more and more money into the system, which I think a conservative doesn't want to have.
And remember, even though the Democrats made this very partisan yesterday, the president did not. You heard Leader Kevin McCarthy say the first time President Trump called him, he said, don't give me a health care bill that's good for the Republican Party. Give me one that's good for the American people. And even yesterday, although he said the Republican Party came together because we couldn't rely on any Democratic votes, we welcome them. Tax reform, infrastructure, we welcome your help defeating ISIS. Come aboard, Democrats. But we had 0. But he wanted something that actually helps Americans. We hear from people every single day who are suffering under Obamacare, and this is for them.
I don't have a lot of time. The Freedom Caucus somehow came on board. What was it that pushed them over the line?
Well, I think it was a better bill for them, and it had more competition in it, less spending, perhaps less, I should say, wasteful spending. But also, I think it's the personal relationships that the president was able to build with Mark Meadows, the head of the House Freedom Caucus, with Tom MacArthur, the head of the Tuesday group, also from New Jersey, and even people who aren't part of any of those groups, where he kept saying, how do we get to yes? He's the ultimate deal maker. He's the most brilliant communicator and natural connector with people I've ever seen, and that goes beyond the electorate. Now it works with his own Republican conference in the House. He was able to talk to them very patiently, very respectfully, invite them in, talk to them on the phone. He and the vice president, I think, deserve the lion's share of credit on that.
He now has a bit of a tall order. He's going to have to do a little deal making on the Senate side of the equation.
That's all right. That's why he's there, and he can do it. He will do it.
Going to leave right. Kellyanne, thank you so much.
Thank you, Eric.
Right there. Coming up right here next on Hannity.
Today, House Republicans voted to make American health care coverage much, much worse.
The liberal mainstream media is teaming up with Democrats to attack the Republican health care bill. We'll show you the worst examples of media bias you've ever seen and get reaction from Dr. Mark Siegel, Byron York, and Joe Concha, and later.
One reporter ran into Reince Priebus, who told her the president stepped up and helped punt the ball into the end zone. I think a more accurate football metaphor might have been the GOP just kicked America in the
And after trashing President Trump earlier in the week, the foul-mouthed Stephen Colbert is at it again. Michelle Malkin is here later to weigh in. That and much more as Hannity continues. Welcome back to Hannity. Just like the Democrats, the liberal mainstream media is slamming the Republican health care bill to try and scare Americans. Take a look.
Today, House Republicans voted to make American health care coverage much, much worse.
You break it, you own it, and anyone that loses their health care as a result of this will blame Republicans.
Is it okay in America, as a sort of fundamental nature of the laws, for an insurance company to charge a family with a kid with cancer $100,000 a year?
No, of course not. And look, I don't think
you
that's
just
gonna
voted
happen.
for a bill that allows that to happen.
No.
Yes, you did, though, sir.
We just saw the people's concerns about pre-existing conditions. That's just one of the landmines going forward as this goes to the Senate.
I think this is one of the largest pure redistributions from poor to rich in one bill we've ever seen.
Okay, that's hard to hear.
Look, it's all smoke and mirrors. And look, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. This is a bad bill, and this is bad politics. And when I see these Republicans out there, declaring this as a victory, I hope they have health insurance, because they really need to get their heads checked.
The media has been quick to trash the GOP health care plan, but didn't seem to care when President Barack Obama misled millions of Americans with these false promises. Watch this.
No matter how we reform health care, we will keep this promise to the American people. If you like your doctor, you will be able to keep your doctor, period. If you like your health care plan, you will be able to keep your health care plan, period. If you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. If you like your health care plan, you can keep your health care plan.
There's no doubt that we must preserve what's best about our health care system. That means allowing Americans who like their doctors and their health care plans to keep them.
If you've got health insurance, you like your doctor, you like your plan, you can keep your doctor, you can keep your plan. Nobody is talking about taking that away from you.
Joining us now with reaction are from the Washington Examiner and Fox News contributor Byron York, Fox News medical correspondent Dr. Mark Siegel, and from the Hill, Joe Concha. Mr. Joe Concha, I didn't hear much pushback by the liberal mainstream media when some of those outrageous claims were being made. Specifically, I was waiting for Rachel Maddow to push back a little bit on Jonathan Gruber, and she says, okay. Gotcha.
I didn't hear once during all those clips you played, one word, Obamacare. And when I watched the 3 evening newscasts last night, and I watched them all, in all of their packages, they left out half the story. What's half the story? Deductibles going through the roof, premiums going through the roof, insurance companies opting out. Why is that important? Because the narrative that became yesterday after this bill passed in the House was that Obamacare is utopian, Eric, that there weren't any cost problems, that insurance companies weren't opting out. So when you present it against a health care bill that we don't know exactly what it's going to end up looking like, but you say it's horrible because it doesn't cover everybody and everything like the old bill, and you leave that out, that is the bias of omission. That's what it sounds like, and more importantly, Eric, that's what it smells like.
Doc, what are we getting here? What do we President Obama, you saw him saying you can keep your doctor, you can keep your insurance if you want to. That was a lie. What are we getting here now?
A lot of people wanted to keep me, Eric, and they couldn't. I'm telling you, their plan just didn't, they couldn't keep coming. Here's where this is a step in the right direction. We're getting rid of the mandate, the individual mandate, which was basically a lie because health insurance doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get health care. You get to the doctor's office, and I'm fighting to get you the care that I want you to get, and the insurance company is turning it down. It's a false premise that insurance means care. It doesn't mean care all the time, and you can overuse it all the time. Come to see me when you don't need to. Joe's point, it's jacking up prices if we cover everybody with pre-existing conditions the same way. Why isn't anyone talking about that? Over on the Democratic side, we have new technologies that are a fortune. I'm very happy about them. The latest inventions, you know what they cost? You know what cancer treatments cost? $100,000 a year. If everybody is paying the same price to cover that, premiums are going to go through the roof. So the new bill with a waiver creates an option that you could fund a high-risk pool, which somebody could go to. if they were in a gap, they could go there and pay a higher premium, which, by the way, the government could supplement.
Let me bring Byron in. Byron, I want you to weigh in on the media treatment of what's going on here. They were very, very anxious to jump on Donald Trump when at first round he couldn't get the votes for this health care bill, and now all of a sudden he gets the votes, and now they're jumping on him again. It's kind of hypocrisy, right?
I think we're seeing one consistent thing through this from the coverage of Obamacare when it was debated and passed in 2009, 2010 to today, which is kind of an amazing lack of skepticism on on the part of a lot of the press. When President Obama made those promises that you just played, a number of them were reported as if they were simple facts. And today, when Democrats say, well, people will die because this bill has been passed, it's kind of reported as a fact. When the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, estimated the original House bill on Obamacare that 24 million people would lose coverage, there was almost no talk about how the CBO had been dramatically wrong, grossly overestimating the number of people who would sign up for Obamacare originally. So when you're talking about these kind of things, and especially about what they're going to do in the future, you have to be skeptical.
But Joe, how about prepared? It struck me as a lot of those anchors didn't have the background. They didn't even understand what they were talking about at the time, and they didn't push back.
And they jumped to the cheap narrative, Eric, and that is the why. Why did Republicans want to repeal and replace Obamacare? Because of the points we made before about cost and about insurance and about it's going to implode underneath its own weight. And they went to the cheap narrative instead, which is Republicans, white, middle-aged, and we heard about the optic yesterday, white, middle-aged, evil Republicans want to get rid of this bill for political sport and because they don't care about Americans. That's the narrative that was pushed.
Let me ask you, Doc, so Democrats are hoping that this bill drives up costs again on health care so they can come back and run on it in 2018.
This bill is a step towards not driving up costs. It depends on what happens in the Senate. Because the reality is, again, this is a prefix meal we have right now under Obamacare. A prefix meal. You pay one price, no matter who you are. A 27-year-old that wants to buy a car can't buy a car because you have to pay an insurance premium. Eric, did you know that 5% of Americans generate 50% of the health care cost? 5% generate 50%.
Oldest and sickest, yeah.
And, okay, and I want to take care of them. I'm compassionate. I'm a compassionate physician. I want to take care of them. But I don't want my 27-year-olds who are just starting out in life to be the ones that are shouldering the burden. Democrats are not considering that.
I'm running out of time, Byron. My final thought on this, and remember, this bill isn't even gone to the Senate yet. I can't wait to see what they come back with next time.
We're about to start this cycle all over again because the bill will go to the Senate. I don't think the Senate's going to start with a blank page. They're going to start with what was passed and try to make the changes they want to make. But the whole idea is just don't believe what they say, read the bill, and make your own judgments about what's going to happen.
Always a great idea. Read it for yourself and make your own judgments. Coming up right here next on Hannity.
One reporter ran into Reince Priebus, who told her the president stepped up and helped punt the ball into the end zone. I think a more accurate football metaphor might have been the GOP just kicked America in the...
After coming under fire for crude jokes about President Trump, Stephen Colbert does it again. Michelle Malkin is here next to respond, and later.
Jim Comey didn't say to the Clinton campaign, don't campaign in Michigan. Jim Comey didn't say, don't go to Wisconsin once after the Democratic convention.
Democrats are calling out Hillary Clinton for making excuses about her election loss. My friend from the 5, Bob Beckel, will be here to respond. All that and much more straight ahead on Hannity.
I'm Jackie Ibanez in New York. More Americans working in April. Employers adding 211,000 jobs. The nation's unemployment rate falling to a 10-year low at 4.4%. The government also reporting 19% of Americans 65 and older are still working. Some because they like to, others because they can't afford not to. And a Navy SEAL killed in Somalia. He died from wounds suffered while aiding Somali troops, fighting al-Shabaab terrorists. It's the first U.S. death in Somalia since the 1993 Black Hawk Down disaster. And lastly, floodwaters receding in the Midwest and South after being pounded for much of the week by tornadoes and heavy rain. At least 15 people died. Meantime, all eyes will be on the weather in Louisville for the 143rd running of the Kentucky Derby. Early rain is in the forecast, but is not expected to affect the race. I'm Jackie Ibanez. Now back to Hannity.
Welcome back to Hannity. Late night talk show host Stephen Colbert continues to go after President Trump and his administration, even after the uproar over his vile and crude monologue Monday night that had people calling for him to be fired. Here he is, at it again last night. Watch this.
One reporter ran into Reince Priebus, who told her the president stepped up and helped punt the ball into the end zone. I think a more accurate football metaphor might have been the GOP just kicked America in the The Republicans went over to the White House, where Donald Trump spoke about the bill in front of the nation's strategic white guy reserve. And he wanted to be very clear about what this is.
This is, make no mistake, this is a repeal and a replace of Obamacare. Make no mistake about it. Make no mistake.
Yes, make no mistake. We've already made enough for today. All the mistakes are taken.
And Colbert is not the only one. Other late night show hosts are also attacking the president. Watch this.
I saw that Democrats are calling for the new Republican health care bill to be called Trump Care. Experts say that's the first time the words Trump and care have ever been said together. It's interesting how it works.
Big news later this month, Donald Trump is going to make his first foreign trip as president. First foreign trip, yeah. That's right, he's visiting a library.
A member of the conservative House Freedom Caucus said yesterday that it can be difficult to negotiate with President Trump because it's hard to tell what he's thinking. Also, if.
Joining us now with reaction, the host of Michelle Malkin Investigates on CRTV.com, Michelle Malkin. Michelle, look, so Stephen Colbert started this off a couple of nights ago. This was written, it was in his prompter. The producers knew, CBS knew he was going to deliver it, and he still delivered it anyway. You can't say it was a mistake. But your thoughts on doubling down and tripling down on this vulgar, vile, crude stuff?
Eric, I really don't know how much lower these clowns in late night can get. I don't want them to be filtered. I don't want them to be censored. I want them to keep showing America how hate-filled and how vile and how filthy so much of their thinking about public discourse in America really is. They really should be thanking Donald Trump. They are now all absorbing what's being called in the TV industry a so-called Trump bump. Prior to Stephen Colbert sinking as low as he's gotten, his ratings were actually dwindling. And I think that they are grasping desperately at these attacks because it's the only way, I think, that they can stay relevant. There was a time when late night comedy could appeal to a broad demographic of people in America. And, you know, whether it was stupid pet tricks or talking about doing pranks on your kids at Halloween, or the bread and butter of so much of late night TV, having on fellow celebrities to chat about the Tinseltown fluff. But no, these people now, I think, believe so much of their own press. And this is the problem with living and breathing and working in coastal bubbles. Where do these people get off thinking that we actually care about their opinions on serious policy matters? And yeah, I'm looking at you, Jimmy Kimmel.
All right, well, I'm looking back at you, Michelle Malkin, and I mean, listen, here's where I remember going all the way back to Johnny Carson. Politics and monologues and late night have always been together, but for some reason, Stephen Colbert, he went over in my opinion, he went over the line. You can talk about a president, you can make fun of a president, but when you get vulgar and crude the way he did in that first monologue, I think he's exceeded the line. Listen, I'm against boycotts. I don't believe in any of that stuff, but he should at least have a sincere apology, right?
You would think so. It's never going to happen, though. I think that he has an insatiable appetite for getting the approbation of radicals, radical progressives in Hollywood, and he's feeling it now. And I think he's feeling some sort of validation. I wish there was more of a backlash among decent liberals, and I guess they're unfortunately too few and far between in America anymore. But I think it's interesting that you talk about the history of late night comedy and politics, Eric. I think that's what's happened, is that the left has gotten so desperate because they realize how marginalized they've become among mainstream America, that we've gone far beyond, Bill Clinton playing the saxophone with Arsenio Hall. Even Jimmy Fallon, I think, remember, he came under attack during the campaign because he did have Donald Trump on. And what was his sin? Treating Donald Trump like a human being. There's nothing more anathema to the radical left than doing anything that would humanize conservatives and Republicans.
Michelle, you remember David Letterman? David Letterman got into a whole heap of trouble when he was. I think he also crossed the line when he talked about Sarah Palin's daughter. I mean, he got dinged for that as well. You think CBS would learn their lessons?
Yes, you're absolutely right. I'm so glad that you reminded our audience of that fact, because it was absolutely disgusting. I mean, these people on the left in the Democratic Party are always lecturing their political enemies that you shouldn't go after women, that you shouldn't talk about the children of political figures. And the way that David Letterman talked about the Palin family was way beyond the pale. And he gave a faux apology after there was a backlash on that. And again, we're talking about the double standards that the radical hate-filled left always gets away with, and it really is time to draw a line on that. Where's the corporate responsibility? All
right, well, maybe we'll ask Les Moonves what he thinks of what's going on his late night program. We're going to leave it right there. Michelle Malcolm, thank you so much. Coming up next, right here on Hannity.
Jim Comey didn't say to the Clinton campaign, don't campaign in Michigan. Jim Comey didn't say, don't go to Wisconsin once after the Democratic convention.
Democrats are calling out Hillary Clinton for refusing to take the blame for her election loss. Has the left had it with Hillary finally? My friend from the 5, Bob Beckel, joins us next and later. Butler University is under fire for an anti-Trump class being offered to students. Anti-Trump class being offered. Charlie Kirk, Kristen Tate, and Raymond Arroyo will respond later. Stay with us. Welcome back to Hannity. Hillary Clinton is back. Earlier this week, the failed presidential candidate came out of hiding and blamed her devastating election loss on James Comey, Russia, and WikiLeaks. Meanwhile, some prominent former Obama administration officials were quick to call her out for making excuses. Watch this.
Jim Comey didn't say to the Clinton campaign, don't campaign in Michigan. Jim Comey didn't say, don't go to Wisconsin once after the Democratic convention. A little more introspection, maybe we'll have to wait for the book, but a little more introspection is probably in order.
If people close to Hillary Clinton who are going to stay in politics don't take from this election that there are a lot of other failings, including where we didn't campaign, the fact that there wasn't polling in swing middle of the country states, the fact that Democrats failed to have an economic message that connected with people, then we're really missing an opportunity, and we're really putting our heads in the sand to our own detriment.
Now, according to reports, Hillary Clinton is planning to launch a brand new political action committee aimed at taking down President Donald Trump. But isn't it time for Hillary Clinton to step aside and let others lead? Haven't Democrats had enough of the Clintons? Joining us now with reaction is the co-host of The 5, Mr. Bob Beckel. Bob, good to be with you again, brother.
You too, man. Congratulations on your new show.
Thank you. And you as well on the new hour. What do the Democrats stand for?
Well, that's part of the problem. I mean, I was down with a group of Democrats, and I said, this was before this broke this week, and I said, we got to get rid of this identity politics. We're the party of gays, labor, women, Indians. And I said, I'm all for that. The problem is that when we lead with that, That's what people in middle America hear. It used to be Democrats were known as the working man's party. And so I think that got lost, and Hillary Clinton made it worse by concentrating on those identities that made up the Democratic Party.
Think about this for a second. Hillary Clinton has a resistance pack, she calls it, and its sole purpose is to take down Donald Trump. One of the other leaders of the Democrat Party, Elizabeth Warren, has a new book out. I think it's number 2 or 3 on the bestseller, New York Times bestseller list, and it specifically deals with taking down Donald Trump. You Democrats seem to be so focused on Donald Trump instead of developing a message that the American people want to hear. Jobs, the economy, make my life better.
Yeah, but listen, you know that when you're a party out of power, you don't make a message for a whole party without a president. And of course, we're out after Donald Trump. It's exactly what I'm doing. Now, I wish Hillary would take a very long boat ride to China, because I don't think it's necessary to have her in the mix, because it reminds people of where we come from. And she's great. I mean, I've always liked her, but we know the problem.
Then whom? Who's the leader?
Well, there is no leader in that sense. I mean, because you don't have a president. That's what the president would be.
Come on, Bob. You don't have to have the White House to have a leader of your party.
The leader of our party will be the person that wins in Iowa and New Hampshire. You know, they say you don't have any bench. We got plenty of people who, you get a name in politics by winning at the presidential level. Who knew Donald Trump much in the country?
So wait, so you're going to tell me the Democrats are going to go the next 3 years without a leader of the party, and you're going to find out whoever becomes the Democrat nominee?
You're going to have some of that, I guess. Schumer and Pelosi and will be seen as that, and the Republicans will continue to say, dump on
Bernie Sanders. Where's his? He actually has a message. Here's a guy who actually does have an economic
and that message is the right message to be developed. The problem is you don't have anybody with standing, except for him, to go around and say that. And so what do we have to work on now? We got before you erupt here, we got a president who, in fact, was not legally elected, but he is our president.
He was totally legally elected.
If the country of Russia was not here, he would not be president of the United States. But let's leave that aside.
I see. I thought you meant the Electoral College wasn't relevant anymore.
No.
So now you're saying the Russians got him elected with absolutely no proof whatsoever.
Well, there'll be plenty of proof coming out. But look, the point is, a lot of people in the Democratic Party believe that. Okay, that's all that matters. That's the perception. They're mad. They're very, very mad. Of that 66 million people, 3 million more than Trump got, a lot of them are furious, and they're staying furious. I haven't seen anything like this since Nixon. And they're going to do whatever's necessary to make Trump's life miserable. And so am I.
Yeah, but just being anti-Trump is not a message. It's not a message that the American people, even the 66 million people who voted for Hillary Clinton, that's not what they want to hear going into 2020. Here's your problem as a Democrat, is that things are getting better. The economy is improving under Trump. I mean, wages are going up, unemployment's going down, the consumer confidence is going up. That's an economic message that you're going to have a tall hill to climb in 2020.
You can follow all the statistics you want. You go out and ask people in Michigan and Wisconsin, places where she lost and shouldn't have. But the point is that he's coming up to a midterm election. We want to make him the message the same way they made Obama the message. Do you remember what McConnell said when he first got in as majority leader? My job from day one is to ensure that Barack Obama doesn't get reelected. Now, okay, I mean, I understand that. And my job as a commentator, a Democratic commentator, is to underscore that Donald Trump has broken the record as the worst president of the United States.
Why? You don't like higher wages? You don't like unemployment going down? You don't like consumer confidence going up? You don't like the stock market making brand new highs on this very day yet again over 21,000? Bob, these are wins. And let's not forget, he got Neil Gorsuch on the Supreme Court.
Yeah, but
he's rolled back regulation. He's done everything he promised.
No, he hasn't done anything. What are you talking about?
Name one campaign promise he hasn't. He's failed on
wall. They got to rent that from China if everything's going to get built.
You've got the wall going too.
And then he said, "I'm going to be an environmental president." He's ripped apart the EPA.
I don't remember him saying that one time, Bob Eckel.
He was asked that.
Donald Trump ran out being an environmentalist?
No. He was asked the question. He said, "I'm going to be a good environmental president," just like he says, "I'm going to be a good president for health insurance." This thing is an abysmal. This is great for us because I'm glad it passed. You don't like it. You know it.
I think I remember him saying, "I'm going to be the greatest president for jobs that America ever had, or that God ever created." I think I remember him saying. And guess what? He's delivering.
How many jobs he created? First of all, you're going to give him the jobs from the day he got from the
No, but I will give him the wages and the consumer confidence, because that is something that follows pretty much month to month. And these are big positive
How
numbers.
much wages you gone up?
2.5% versus last year, just this month alone.
And if you take the look at it from the wealthiest job workers down to the lowest,
I'll tell you,
it
you know who benefits the most in that? The middle class down to the lower class.
Well,
they want to see the higher wages.
That's your argument, it's not mine. But you know, the one thing I'll say about you, Eric, I've known you a long time. I love you. But somewhere when you were 10 months old, your mother dropped you on your head, and
I've never quite recovered.
And you never quite recovered. And you predicted, one of the first people to predict that Trump was going to win. I was on my back, and I had back surgery. I almost got up and walked. I mean, I couldn't believe it.
I love you, brother. Good to see you again, Bob.
You too.
Coming up, liberal campus craziness. Butler University is now toning down the description of its brand new anti-Trump class over growing backlash. Charlie Kirk, Kristen Tate, and Raymond Arroyo will respond. That and much more as Hannity continues. Welcome back to Hannity. Butler University sparked outrage recently after offering a brand new course titled Trumpism and U.S. Democracy, which described President Trump as someone who is, quote, perpetuating sexism, white supremacy, xenophobia, nationalism, nativism, and imperialism. The course description went on to say that the class would, quote, discuss and potentially engage in strategies for resistance. After facing backlash over this anti-Trump class, the course description was revised, but the class is still going forward as planned, and the university is defending that decision. Joining us now with reaction is the author of Will Wilder, The Lost Staff of Wonders, Raymond Arroyo, along with the founder and executive director of Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk, and contributor for The Hill, Kristen Tate. Kristen, your thoughts on it? Can you imagine them putting a prospectus together and putting this class out there being so negative and so anti-Trump?
Oh, I know. It blows my mind, though, that these Butler snowflakes would pay $36,000 a year in tuition for this nonsense. I mean, if they wanted to learn resistance tactics against Trump, they could just turn on CNN and get the same thing for free. But, you know, the original course description that Butler had was so radical, even by liberal standards, that they really had no choice to tone it down. But I'll guarantee you, Eric, that the course, the actual contents of the course, will be very closely aligned with the original course description. This is pure indoctrination, and unfortunately, this is very common today on college campuses. Even Harvard University ran a series of anti-Trump courses called the Resistance School. It's crazy what's going on. I mean, kids are literally paying to get educated in how to march and hold picket signs.
So Charlie, let's say my son is in one of these classes, and he happens to be pro-Trump, which he is at University of Colorado. Is he almost guaranteed a failing grade if he has that position?
Almost guaranteed, and it's less like a class and more like a training camp. They're trying to train these liberal activists to get class credit to protest the president. Now imagine for a second if there was a class that did this against Barack Obama. Imagine the backlash, imagine the media attention. And not to mention, you know, you look at these college university administrators and these professors, they're not sorry that this actually happened. They're sorry they got caught. They're more sorry that someone found out about this. They're so embarrassed that this actually got revealed. I mean, they actually believe that the university structure should exist to train young people to resist conservative ideas and now the President of the United States. So mom and dads watching out there, they can access our website, professorwatchlist.org, and see all these professors that do this. But your tuition dollars might be going to train the next generation.
Very good point,
of
Charlie. Let's take you, Raymond. The thoughts of a parent spending money on a course is biased. I mean, just outright biased as this.
Eric, my biggest problem is, look, if you want to study a presidency, fine, study a presidency. This man has been in office for 100 days and change. There are clearly presidencies that are closed that you could have a historical context and have a debate. That is called dialogue, which the president at Butler is calling for. But this, I mean, imagine if we had Hillary Clinton, pantsuits and power as a course, or Jeb Bush, a study in low energy. This is ridiculous. This is political jingoism as course study. If you want to resist something, that's what should be resisted.
So, Kristen, let me talk to you about this. So what's going on in academia? The closed-mindedness is insane. You talk about this course, and then you talk about Berkeley, where they're shutting down speech if it's not speech that they agree with. This is anti-free speech.
Absolutely. Those on the left have no tolerance for diversity in opinion. But you know what, Eric? I got to tell you, I'm a little bit optimistic about the future because the left has become so radical that I think we're starting to see the beginning of a pendulum swing in the other direction. I really do. I think there's a movement of conservative, millennial conservatives
Charlie,
who are starting to speak out.
Sure,
Look at Charlie's organization, Turning Points. It's huge and it's growing.
It's a great organization, but these academics still continue to do this bias teaching. Charlie.
Well, I will say that there is a pushback against this, and young people are fed up with saying you have to think this, you have to do that, and there is going to be a pendulum shift back to that, because who wants to be told what to do? Very quickly, young people, if you're a progressive on campus, who are you rebelling against? The teachers are progressive, the professors are progressive, your parents are progressive, the music you listen to is liberal. The rebels on campus are conservatives. So there is a lot of potential. I am optimistic, but there's a lot of work to do.
Raymond, are you optimistic that the pendulum, as Kristen points out, is swinging back in the right direction?
Eric, like you, I've been touring a lot of campuses. My son's going to college next fall. You do see an emergence of true liberal education, where you have people on the left, people on the right. That's what we need, a true civic discussion. Let's have a discussion and engage the real issues and a real record, not 100 days of an administration. We don't know what the Trump administration will bear at the end, but to try to classify it and set it in a course study this early, I think is reductive and dangerous for our kids. Really.
I'll tell you what, it's only 100 and change days that you pointed out. I can't imagine what's going to happen, I don't know, 7, 8 years down the road of a Trump administration. Yes, I did say 7 or 8 years. We're going to have to leave it right there. We'll have more Hannity after the break. Stay with us.